Hey everybody, it's Crazy Aunt Suzie, and it's another episode of My Fabulous Sex-Cast during our month of Pride shows, where we have some of the biggest movers and shakers and influencers in the LGBTQ community that are joining us this whole month. And oh my God, Ashlyn, you're here, my fabulous little producer.
Hi, Aunt Suzie.
Are you excited?
Oh my God.
Are you excited? We have legendary Coco Peru is going to be on the show today.
I can barely believe it.
I know, because you've become like her major, biggest fan.
Yeah, I know. I'm a millennial, obviously, and YouTube has ruled my life for as long as I can remember. And Miss Coco Peru has been part of it.
Oh my gosh! Hold on. I think I see her. I think I see her coming up the driveway. Oh my gosh! Coco Peru, how are you, doll?
Hello, Suzie.
Oh, it just seems like only yesterday we was talking. How you doing, girl?
I'm doing well. Surviving.
Yeah, well, we're all sitting here with our tension tamer tea. I even wore copper today to match your hair. I did. I thought, Coco's coming over, so I got to really dress up super nice. Even Ashley wore the same thing. She wore copper too. It was amazing. But
oh wow, what an honor!
I know. Oh my God, I adore you so much. You've always been such a sweetheart and a friend. And every time I've asked you to do something, you're like, okay, I'm gonna do it for the old Jew bitch. I'll do it for her. Yeah, and you do.
I do. Of course I do. I'm honored people still remember who I am.
Oh, please, come on. I mean, you are a legend. A legend. Please.
Well, after 30 years, I'm just thrilled that I can still work.
Please, come on. Well, you're doing these, aren't you? You're doing these live shows now. These that you have to get tickets.
I just started. I've only done one. Next Wednesday's my second one.
Well, the first one I couldn't get in because everything was sold out.
House of Coco.
House of Coco. And so you're doing one on the 24th?
I'm doing one on the 24th. And do you know the puppeteer, Leslie Carrera Rudolph?
Oh yeah, didn't he have the place downtown?
No, it's a girl,
Uh-huh.
and she's the voice of Abacadabby on Sesame Street, so she'll be my one guest, and then the actor Zachary Quinto's going to be my other guest.
Oh my gosh.
Oh gosh, you just made...
Yeah, you already set me off, Coco. Sorry.
She's 25.
Uh-oh.
She's 25. She's a millennial. She's moist. Sitting here in the studio. You know how it goes.
As I am.
I do.
25. See, you were down 20. 30 years you've been in the business, and you started...
I know. I've been doing drag longer than your sidekick here has been alive.
Right? I mean, so you got your start. Like, you got your start in the New York City cabaret scene, right? How did it all...
Yeah.
Explain.
My first Coco show was at a place called Rose's Turn.
Oh, my gosh. Yes. And then...
Yeah, and then I moved over to the West Beth... No, I moved over to 88, so I was doing two shows at once.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved over to the West Beth Theater.
Wow. So what was it like back then? What was cabaret like 30 years ago?
It's interesting because I had gone to college for theater.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to do cabaret shows, and we would rehearse only for 2 weeks, and they were very, very political, very social.
Mm-hmm.
And our musical director for the two cabaret shows that I was in, the musical director was Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent.
Right. Oh wow.
Because he went to my college.
Mm-hmm.
So. I had this idea that cabaret was, really pushing the envelope and very edgy. So when I arrived on the cabaret scene, it was more like people singing the Great American Songbook, which is great.
Right.
But it wasn't necessarily my thing. But I sort of made a name for myself in that world.
And the rest is history.
And the rest is history.
How did you come up with the name Coco Peru?
My first boyfriend was Peruvian. We went to Peru together. I met a drag queen named Coco. And back then in the 80s, in Lima, and I'm sure it's even today a little bit, although it's gotten better, it was very homophobic, very, very Catholic, very macho. So the gay bar, you had to knock on the door, and inside I met this young cute boy named Coco, and then they introduced him an hour or so later. He came out as this glamorous showgirl. And then I learned that he was very famous in Peru. He was on TV all the time. And I couldn't believe that in that country, a drag queen could become famous.
Right.
And it got me thinking about the power of owning 100% of yourself.
Right.
And so I came back to New York, and I was wanting to be an activist. I wanted to be an entertainer. I was looking at everyone dying of AIDS around me, and I just one day said out loud, I'm a drag queen. And suddenly I started writing, and I booked my show before I even had it written. And so I call myself Coco after that boy I met. Wow. And then I tacked on the Peru.
Wow. I'm amazing. I have history. And Miraflores. It's funny. We both had boyfriends in Peru. I dated a kid for 2 years.
My ex still lives in Miraflores.
Get out of here. I love Miraflores. That Lacomar, the mall on the side of the cliffs and shit. Yeah, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So okay. You are a master of the one-woman show. What's your favorite part of writing a new show for yourself? Because I've seen your shows. They're very poignant.
Actually, I hate writing shows. I find it terribly lonely. I find it frustrating. I find sitting in front of a blank screen so intimidating. But that's why I've always given myself deadlines. Like, I'll book a show before I actually have it written, because then that's what forces me to have to do it.
What's your astrological sign?
What, honey?
What's your astrological sign?
Virgo.
Oh, so am I. I do the same freaking thing. What day?
The 27th of August.
I'm the 31st. We have the exact same. I do the same shit. I can't write unless I know it's happening. It pisses off Ashlyn sitting across from me.
Yeah.
Capricorn here.
Oh my god.
Not a fan of that, but.
Wow. Because so how long do you give yourself when you write a show? You're going to do the show, you have it booked?
Usually I give myself 3 months.
Wow. And so do you bounce?
And then I make the music tracks, and I decide what songs, and I probably write 150 pages,
right?
And then which then gets edited down to about between 26 and 30.
So,
and that's usually an hour and 10 show.
So how do you? Okay, here's something interesting, because performing and stuff like that. So do you sneak in places and try the show out anywhere? Do you bring in audiences?
No. I write it. It's all based on my real life,
right,
and then
course.
I go. This is what I do usually over dinner or something with friends. I'll tell a story and people laugh, and I'll go in the back of my mind, I should remember that story. And then as you start writing, it just starts coming out,
right.
And then it starts connecting, and all of a sudden you have a show.
Right.
But it's a mystery to me sometimes how it actually happens. I think, who the hell wrote this?
Right. But you usually do a new one every year, right? I mean, it's like it seems
not every year. Every year.
It seems like it.
But that's the thing. People want a new show every year out of me, but it's just I don't work that way.
Right. I get it. So the other thing is, like, okay, this is where Ashlyn has just been going crazy, because she's been sending me all your videos. You are and have been a viral sensation on social media, especially YouTube. I mean, I was watching, what I hadn't seen was Ad Coco, and I wet myself yesterday watching that YouTube video. I was like, all right, bitch, she did it. That's fucking funny stuff.
That all started just as a goof.
Really?
My manager, Michael, said, let's make a video for your fans, because there was a wig that was released in Target that looked very much like Coco Peru. So he said, we'll go into Target and we'll look for the wig. And that's how it got started. And then it went well, and a lot of people watched it. And then he said, let's do another one. What do you think would be funny? And I said, well, Celestial Seasonings Tension Tamer Tea is just funny to say.
Right.
And I really do drink it, and they really did discontinue it in the in the stores. So I decided that's what we would do. And that was already a running gag in some of my shows, mentioning the tea.
Right.
So we made that video, and then Tyler Oakley,
the little astrologer,
who's a big YouTube star, reposted it, and it went viral. And that's where all these young girls discovered me. And now I have all these teenage girls that want to, call me Aunt Coco or Mom, and
I got one
sometimes Grandma.
I got one sitting across from me right now here in the studio.
Yeah,
she's just all.
I love it. I think it's wonderful.
What? So how many boxes of Tension Tamer do you have stocked up? Because I'm sure everybody sends it to you, don't they? Or do you like?
In the past, I have had probably about 150. I'm down to 3.
Does it calm you? I guess it does. It calms your tension. It tames your tension.
It does. And my mom's a big fan of it as well, and her store discontinued it for about 3 years. And every week when she would go in shopping, she would ask for the manager. And the manager would come out, and she would say, you discontinued the tea. I got all my girlfriends turned onto it. You could be making money.
Right.
You should bring it back to the store.
Right.
3 years later, she called me. She says, you're not going to believe this. They got my Tension Tamer tea back. I said, because you haunted that manager for 3 years.
Yes. Hold on.
But that's New Yorkers. That's what we do.
Of course. Well, what is it, Ashley?
I was just going to say, I think some of the first videos I saw from you, Coco, online were with Garrett Watts. How did you meet him or start working with him? Because he's a pretty big YouTuber, too.
Yeah, Garrett was a friend of my manager. I forget how they met, but so Garrett was young and just had a camera. And Michael was like, oh, would you do us a favor? Would you film that Target video? And Garrett was like, sure. So that's how that started. And then Garrett really wanted to become a YouTube star himself, and pursued that. So I stopped working with Garrett, but we're still friends. But he really wanted to do his own thing.
Right. Yeah. Recently, I saw something, and I was online, and you posted something. I guess something had happened with a bunch of the younger drag queens talking about hair and not having enough wigs, or they were poking fun of this drag queen because she didn't have all these different hairstyles, and all you did was post your hair.
Yeah, well, it was Aiden Zane that was on RuPaul's Drag Race, and people were the thing that's kind of baffles me is that since RuPaul's Drag Race has been on the air, suddenly everybody is an expert on what drag is and what it should look like.
Right.
And often they're wrong. It's like drag is whatever you want it to be, and that's what's so beautiful about it. So Aiden was on RuPaul's Drag Race, and he had this one black wig, and I just loved his look. But everybody was like, really can be very cruel and saying things about him. So I just said, I don't know why everyone's so upset about having only doing one wig. I've had 30-year career wearing one wig.
Right.
Yeah.
I get it. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Esther's hair stays the same. Aunt Susie's is the exact same hair. It's like, I don't want to have to deal with 3 different freaking hairstyles. But then we could be like Bunny and order 20 wigs and clash them all together and throw them on top of our head.
Well, I didn't want to, I'm not very clever with hair and makeup.
Right.
But the truth is, I've always been obsessed with silhouettes. And so I wanted to create something that was a silhouette that people would recognize, and they would know that that's Coco Peru.
Right.
And so 30 years later, I feel like I did at least accomplish that. People see the red flip hair, and they're like, Coco Peru.
Your shows are very, very... your shows all have a message, and you tie it all together. You have the whole story arc and where you tie your shows together and stuff. What do you think? 30 years ago when you started, and now here we are. What are your feelings on, RuPaul's Drag Race kind of exploded drag into the world. So now it's just, you and I lived in a world where it was like, okay, we're different, but now it's like no big deal. What do you think of drag today? What do you think? How it has it affected you? Has it
Well, when Drag Race first came on television, it affected all of us older queens that were the ones that club goers usually went to.
Right.
Me, Jackie B, Varla Jean Merman.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I would say about 40% of my work dried up. So there were a rough couple of years there. And then all of a sudden, I started getting calls again from different venues. And the same story they gave was, we feel a responsibility to introduce young people to these older queens who actually have a show.
Right.
And so they got used to these younger queens from RuPaul's Drag Race showing up, maybe lip-syncing 2 songs, having a list of demands that they, needed in their rider. So they got a little tired of it. But along with all the queens that have come there, there's some really great, talented ones, and I've worked with a lot of them and have so much fun. So, I think RuPaul's Drag Race, depending on what you're going to focus on, it's done some good in the world, obviously, and then there's some things where I think it's like a typical reality show where we're celebrating people and treating them like celebrities when...
They haven't earned it.
In my day, if you were going to make it and become a celebrity, you really had to work on your craft before you became anything.
Yeah.
Go
ahead. No, I was just saying. I get that. I understand that totally. It's like I remember it used to be a privilege to walk on the red carpet. It used to be a privilege, and now you go to fucking Chipotle and they have a step and repeat. Everybody.
Yeah, well, I don't do red carpets ever.
I mean,
even when they ask me to do them, I think it's embarrassing.
Oh, please! But you know what I'm saying.
I don't like them.
But to me, it's sort of the same thing. It's like all of a sudden, it's like I remember when it was an honor to do those things.
Yeah.
You worked for the privilege to do that, and then they made it so simple. So you have probably been featured in some of the most famous sitcoms of the last 2 generations. Will and Grace, Arrested Development, How I Met Your Mother. Okay, give us some poop. What are some of the amazing... You got to have some... What was it like to be... You were in the, were you in the next to the finale of when they closed Coco's on Will and Grace? What was it like working with that cast? And
well, that was the best because I was telling someone yesterday, the day before, when I was on it the first time, I was on it very briefly, which was wonderful. But it was also a time when you think about when that show first came on, the guys didn't kiss. They didn't have long-term boyfriends, and it was just a different time. And now, all these years later, the way they wrote those scripts was so different, where Jack is getting married, Will has boyfriends. It's just a different time. And I went from a drag queen that lived in the house with his mom to a business owner who's married. I was a bit stereotypical, but whatever.
Right.
And the other thing is that being on the set, I felt like everybody involved in that show looked at me as, wow, this queen survived this business for 30 years without really being on television. And so they really embraced me and celebrated me. And, they even, in the bar scene, they made coasters with my logo on it. Nobody saw those on the television, but they thought it was important to make the set as authentic to me as possible. And I just thought that was so generous of them.
Did you get to keep anything?
And then, like, How I Met Your Mother, I swore years ago, I said, I'll never play a prostitute because, I just think it's so typical. And sure, that I went in for the audition, it was a prostitute role, and I was like, I got it, and then I thought, well, I'm not going to turn down that money. So
right.
I did it.
And Arrested Development?
Arrested Development, the big thrill for Arrested Development was Jimmy Vallely, who was one of the creators and writers, big Emmy winner, brilliant minds. I was getting ready in my trailer, and there was a knock on the door, and it was my friend that had got me the audition, and Jimmy Vallely was standing behind him, and when I came out to say hello, he started jumping up and down and screaming, "Oh my God, Coco Peru, Coco Peru!" And he's a straight guy, and I just thought, wow.
Hey, you're a legend. You're a legend.
I couldn't believe it.
Hey,
so yeah, that made me feel really good.
Did you get to keep anything off the? Did they give you like the Coco neon or anything? Did you? Were you able to...
I have the Coco neon. They did give that to me.
Oh my God! Did you keep a couple of the coasters too, like to put in a frame?
I kept a couple of the coasters as well, and they tossed them out to the audience and things like that.
She's
yeah,
a nice Jewish girl would go for all the free shit. I'm telling you, I know her. I know her. Good. I am.
I'm not Jewish, by the way.
I thought you were Jewish.
No.
Oh
Everybody thinks I'm Jewish because I have a New York accent, but I am not Jewish. I was raised Roman Catholic.
I feel like Betty Davis at the end of the movie. After all these years, we could have been friends. Are you serious?
It's very funny. I mean, people are shocked when I have to tell them that I'm not Jewish. And sometimes I'm even afraid to tell people I'm not Jewish because they're so wrapped up in that relating to me on that level that I always feel badly saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm not one of you." I feel very.
I feel
I have a lot of Jewish sensibilities because I am from New York and I have a Jewish brother-in-law and I wore a yarmulke around the house as a kid, but. No,
I had no idea. I had no idea. Well, did I learn something today?
I just, for so long, every time you said things like that, I thought you were joking, and then
I was serious.
I wonder if she doesn't know I'm really not Jewish.
I swear.
Well, I'm glad we cleared that up.
Thank you. Now we can go. I mean, I thought, well, maybe you had a collection of dreidels and yarmulkes and Stars of David like I do. Every time
Well, I do have a yarmulke, and I have a beautiful sign that says, a few years ago, my neighbor died. She was an older Jewish woman. I went next door, and I bought a beautiful little candy jar that says, "For Noshers only."
Aww.
And then I bought another beautiful sign that's very, like from the mid-century, and it says, "Shalom."
Shalom. Yeah.
And then we bought another needle point that says Shalom. My husband is not Jewish. He's from Spain, but he is obsessed with Jewish culture. So we both kind of have that in us, I think.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back a few years. How the first time I saw you was in the movie Trick, and how did that change your life and career? Did it
completely? Yeah, of course it did. Everything in your life leads you to another thing, and the big miracle of that was that I was not in that movie. I was not a part of that movie when it was first written.
Really?
The director, Jim Fall, was an old friend of mine, had asked me to help him audition people for the first reading, and I just said yes. And I think, oh my God, I could have said no, but that day I happened to say yes. And he thought I was so funny reading the other parts against the other actors. He said, "Why don't you play the part of Catherine?" That later went to Tori Spelling. So I did the first reading doing that part, and everybody said, "Keep the drag queen in the movie." So they wrote me the bathroom scene, and then they allowed me to rewrite it with my own, thoughts. And it completely changed my life. And when I knew my life was going to be a little bit different was when we flew out to San Francisco for the Gay and Lesbian Film Festival there. And I walked into the after party after the movie, and I got stopped by someone to say how much they loved me, and I never moved from that spot.
Wow.
Because I couldn't even get something to drink or an hors d'oeuvre because people just kept coming up to me, and I thought, oh my God, this is unreal to be recognized, on this level.
It was that moment. You've worked with the Los Angeles LGBTQ Center with your conversations with Coco. I've seen a few of them. You also Lily Tomlin, including a great conversation with Jane Fonda. Why is she such an important person when it comes to celebrity advocacy?
Who, Jane Fonda?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was really surprised, quite honestly, that when I posted about that, some people actually still, and I'm talking about queer people wrote very horrible things about her, and I thought, really, you haven't let that go, and you're gay? It just was so bizarre to me.
Right.
But she's always been so outspoken, and she's always been a activist,
right.
And that's kind of where I respond to her. But then, she was in 9 to 5, and I was obsessed with that movie as a young person.
Right.
So, and we didn't really talk about her political activism that night. We talked about her career,
right.
which has been extraordinary.
Right. Well, it's like Lily Tomlin. I mean, you and Lily, you did the thing. You must have been crazy to meet like two. Oh, well, I'm sure you met Dolly at some point, but you've met all three of them, right? From 9 to 5?
I haven't met Dolly ever. No, I've never met Dolly. But Lily is wonderful, and she comes to see all of my shows.
Right.
She's such a great supporter.
Right.
And to have someone that I was obsessed with as a kid, someone I thought that's kind of what I want to be when I grow up, is amazing. And even her wife, Jane. And her writing, the fact that Jane is a fan of my writing just blows me away.
Well, my darling, you write very, very well. I mean, you really do. You very thought-provoking.
Oh, Susie.
Oh, please. What can I say? But it's true. Okay. Here we go. Down towards the end here with the questions. But what is the best part about how we've progressed in the LGBTQ community over the years?
For me personally, and what my goal was when I created Coco Peru, was I didn't want young kids to have to go through what I went through.
Right.
And so when I see young people coming out to their parents at such early ages, or not even having to come out because their parents recognize it and are sort of guiding them out of the closet, I mean, I know the struggle is still real for a lot of young people. Compared to what I see from years ago, my niece lives in Florida. While she was in high school, I said to her, do the other kids make fun of any of the gay kids in your school? Because she grew up with 2 gay uncles, and it's normal to her. And she said no, and if they do, it's the bully that looks like the idiot. And she told me that there were 2 boys in her school who were gay, who wore full makeup, like drag makeup, to school. In Florida, and I thought, wow, okay, so the world is changing.
It has. What work do we still have to do, you think?
Oh my God!
I know you didn't think the old broad was going to let you get away with all frivolity,
well, listen,
would you?
We know that trans women are in more danger. So we really need to start speaking up for them. We know I've been really so excited looking at Black Lives Matter and so many people coming out into the streets. It feels like, the 80s and 90s when people were doing the AIDS activism. Right. To see people taking to the streets really, I just loved seeing it.
Right. Go ahead.
So I just think, human rights and equality and people having a voice and living authentically and just, equality and having a fair shake in the game. Sometimes I always felt like I was surviving or I was fighting for things, and it's exhausting. And, and the other thing is I lost my education at school because I was so bullied. So there's so much that I can look back and go, that was unfair. I shouldn't have had to experience all of that. So moving forward, that's always been my motivation, is to create a world that I would want to live in, basically. Awesome. And I think every single person has that responsibility, that you have to create the world you want to live in. It's not, it's 100% your responsibility.
There you go. And my dear, you have created an incredible world and invited all of us through the years to come in and experience it. I'm telling you.
Well, I'm now taking Lexapro for the anxiety because these last few years have really put me over the edge. My therapist, every single one of therapists that I've ever had over the years says, you know what, Coco, you do not need pills because you work your shit out on stage. You're you're pretty balanced. But these last few years have really put me over the edge. And my doctor finally said, you know what? You need pills.
Just like in Valley of the Dolls, right? What were you going to say?
You'll have to get with Frank DeCaro. He was on our show last week and had a great recipe for Lexapro Spritz. So
yeah, Lexapro spritzers is what
that's what I'm taking.
Frank
A very
says.
low dose, but
Yeah.
it does the trick.
It does. So once again, you're doing your live shows. Let's promote your shows. You're doing the live shows that they have to go online and reserve tickets. Am I right? Tell us how to do
You
that.
go online to casacoco.live. And you reserve a ticket. It's free. And then you'll get people get an email, and they're told where to go and all that. And then it's the 24th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And as I tell everybody else, if you live in a different time zone, you figure it out. I'm too old.
No, right? I mean, we do this. We do this show. We do a Facebook Live so people watch it, but we also are pre-recording for the Podbean network, which is where we go on, and you'll be on Podbean next Friday. And so we've been doing these. I don't know if you read any of the promos that we put up earlier, where I'm giving away a free glow-in-the-dark butt plug for the people who has the most people watching Coco's interview. So
do they make those?
Oh my God, girl! When you look at this, it's called the Luminous Plug, glow-in-the-dark butt plug. And
wow,
I know, unbelievable. So we do I do crazy
stuff. Well, when I first worked in Vegas, I was in that small little theater.
The Onyx?
Is that the name of it? I think so. It was next to that very famous Thai restaurant.
Right, right.
Yeah. And you had to walk through a sex store to get into the theater.
Right. And there's like
I just love that. So I used to tell people, grab a ball stretcher on the way out. And
my darling.
Vegas is a trip.
And everything's closed down right now. There's nothing going on. I mean, people just come here to gamble and look at each other. They did start, the Wynn started their buffets, but it's not really a buffet. You have to tell the waiter, they have to come to your table and then move it out. My darling, what can I say? You are a sweetheart, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for popping on the show.
Of course, darling. Happy to support.
We are going to be bringing the show with cameras to Hollywood in the next few months, once we all can stop wearing the damn face masks and stuff. And I hope you'll be able to join us in the studio. Maybe we'll have like you.
I would love that. Let me know.
You and Bruce Valanche will all sit around and kibitz and just have a blast. Ladies and gentlemen.
I can certainly kibitz.
I know. Even though you're not Jewish. I love you, Coco Peru. Thank you so much, Ashlyn.
Thank you so much, Coco. It's so awesome to get
Thank
to
you,
talk to
Ashlyn. Thank you for your support, sweetheart.
Of course.
All right,
I'll
my
meet
darling.
you soon.
Bye now.
This is
Aunt Suzie saying, have an awesome day.